In this video, I am about to show to you my output or my lecture exam in our subject microprocessors, in which we are about to establish a serial communication between the Arduino IDE, Java GUI, and the Proteus circuit simulation software. First things first, let us set up our softwares by opening the Xammp, and we should start this one and also this one, since it will serve as our server for our database. And the next one would be the establishment of virtual serial ports through the help of this software, which is an RS232 emulator suggested by our professor. And as you can see, it could generate virtual serial ports such as COM1 and COM2. The next action would be looking for our database by typing our server in our browser by typing localhost. And my created database is not this one, and it would be this one. Then the four sensors would be my table for this database, so let's click this one. And as you can see, here are the values that I had already inputted for my test in the connection of the GUI and to the Proteus. So let's try scrolling down to see the other values, and as you can see, there are lots of values that I had already inputted. And from the last value, you can see the ID here, which is 153, and later on I will try to show to you if these values will alter or will it increase as I do the simulation. So now let's go ahead to our Arduino codes, two Arduino codes specifically. And this first code will be allotted to the first microcontroller, and the second code, this would be allotted for the second microcontroller, in which it will try to do the serial communication to our compim component in the Proteus. So now let's try to compile both of these codes, and let's wait for a while. And as you can see, it was successful, and we will just try to get the hex file, which is this one. You can copy this one and then paste it on the Proteus. And for the next Arduino, we can also compile this one, and as you can see, it is also successful, in which we will find the hex file. And as you can see, this is the hex file, and we will try to copy this one and then paste it here in the Proteus. And from this circuit, you can see the two microcontrollers. You can paste the hex file location in the program file tab, same as well with the microcontroller too. Here's our components: the LCD, the two fans for the output, the COM pin, which will serve as a serial communicator, the terminal for the display of the values, the LED, which are representing from the salinity, temperature, and humidity. And this was our inputs on the top right of the circuit, you can see. So let's try to simulate this circuit, and let's just wait for a while. And as you can see, the values are displaying, meaning that we had already established a good code for our Arduino for the two microcontrollers. You can see the values are displaying over the LCD, and also the conditions for our LEDs. So let's stop the simulation. And since we are done with the softwares in relation to Arduino and to our database, and as well as to our ports, we can now proceed to our Java GUI, and I utilized Netbeans for creating the design. And as you can see, this is just a huge code that I had implemented. You might see some functions that are familiar to you. And for the codes of this Java GUI and for the Arduino, I will try to add a link below in the description box so you can check it out. And I will also try to add the links of the softwares that I had utilized in this project. So now we are at the end of the code, in which all of the components were declared here. So now let's try to run this Java. So you can see here my layout for the GUI, and before you try to connect or press the connect button, you should check the port of the Proteus, which is here. You can see it uses the COM1. So this COM port will not be available in our GUI, so we will try to connect to our COM2. Press connect, and then as you can see, there will be no data will be displayed in our chart. since the circuit that we had created in the Proteus is not in the debugging mode. So as you can see, we can minimize, maximize, and exit the GUI through the buttons that I had made, which can be found to the top right of the GUI. And again, let's try to simulate this GUI Java. And this time, we will try to do the actual simulation, and let's try to connect the Java GUI first to the port. And as you can see, it is connected. Then let's go to the Proteus. Let's try to adjust the window here for us to be able to adjust the values of the potentiometers that we had established in this circuit. So let's try to run this one. And as you can see, the values has been displayed from the top as a numerical value, and continuously I am doing the changes in our potentiometer here in the Proteus. And as you can see, the chart is changing the trend. And for our on the left panel, you can see the status of our fan and LEDs, and unfortunately the LED 3 is not visible because of the virtual terminal. And as you can see, as the values has been changing, constantly changing from our Proteus, and the values been displayed for our virtual terminal, the values is already displaying in our chart to our numerical values in real time. And take note, every second there will be a data that will be incoming to our chart, to our numerical value, and to our virtual terminal. And always keep in mind that throughout this simulation, I am manually changing the values of our potentiometer in the Proteus circuit. And I just feel bad that my cursor is not displaying because I forgot to display the cursor for you to see that I am constantly changing the values of the potentiometer every second. For the other features of this GUI, you can also check the label or the description of each numerical value that displays the actual data. So now, let me just try to stop the simulation of the GUI by clicking the disconnect button. And as you can see, as I disconnect the GUI to the port, a pie chart is displayed on the bottom left, and it is just a simple pie chart that displays the range of the temperature, whether it is hot, cold, or normal temperature, in which there are certain values that I had already assigned in that pie chart. So that values or that distribution is displayed after disconnecting the port from the GUI. And I guess that's it for the actual simulation. So let's now head over to our database, in which we will try to see if the values that I had inserted will be displayed here in the database. So let's try. As you can see earlier, it was 153. You can see here the last ID was 153. So we will try to refresh this one to see if the values will be inserted. And as I refresh, the last ID number would be, let me scroll down, is 181. So there are 30 plus data that had been inserted through the simulation earlier that we have done. And through a rewind, we can check if the values that had been inserted to the database is just the same with the values that has been displayed in our virtual terminal earlier during the simulation before we disconnect the port to our GUI. And I guess that's it. That would be all for this activity. Thank you for watching this video.